Hello everyone, welcome you all in this video lecture. So in this video tutorial, we will discuss about various types of bacterial infections, their precautions, their treatment and about their symptoms. So let's start with the introduction. So before moving to the topic, let's understand some characteristic features and some basic facts about bacteria. So the bacteria are one of the oldest life forms in the earth, which are unicellular, which means single-celled organisms. So that live almost everywhere. They live in every climate or can found in every location on the earth, from extremely hot conditions to extremely cold conditions. Now some of the airborne bacteria, while others are living in water or soil. They can live on and inside the plants, animals, people and in any condition in earth. So bacteria are considered as prokaryotic organisms because they do not have well-defined nucleus, as well as they also lack several cytoplasmic organelles. So on the basis of cell wall compositions, the bacteria are categorized into two types, which are named as gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. Bacteria also vary in their shape and size, and of course they also vary in their morphology. So basically, on the basis of their shapes, bacteria can be categorized into four types, which are Bacillus, Spirilla, Coccus and Vibrio. So they are the Coccus, which are spherical shaped bacteria, the Bacilli, which are rod shaped bacteria, Spiral, which are spiral shaped, and Vibrio are comma shaped bacteria. So these are some characteristic features about bacteria. So now these bacteria play a very important role for humans. Several bacteria also have beneficial roles for us, like lactobacillus and many other, which act as probiotics for humans as well as for other higher organisms. But many of these also act as pathogens for several life-threatening diseases. So these bacteria cause different types of diseases and they cause several infections also in human beings. So let's understand the structure of bacterial cell with the help of this diagram. So here in this diagram we can see a rod shaped or a bacillus shaped structure, which is called as bacilli or bacillus, and this is the structure of bacterial cell, having the anatomy of the cell and consist of different cellular organelles. So here we can see the outermost layer having capsule, which is followed by the cell wall. So basically the cell wall is only found in the plant cell, and that's why the bacterial cell is also considered as connecting link between plant cells and animal cells. This cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan and it is followed by cell membrane or plasma membrane. Now inside the plasma membrane there is a cytoplasmic organelles which are embedded in the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is a fluid-like structure which is filled in the cell. So beside the eukaryotic cells, the prokaryotic cells or the bacterial cells lack several different types of cytoplasmic organelles, which are membrane-bound organelles. It also lacks the well-defined nucleus, and instead of it, it contains nucleoid or nuclear material, which is not well-defined. So there are some glycogen granules also present in the bacterial cells, and also some ribosomes are present, which are responsible for synthesis of several proteins. Now the bacterial cell also consists of flagellum or flagella in its structure, and this flagellum is responsible for the movement of bacteria and it helps in the motility of the bacteria. So now let's understand about the bacterial infections. So as we have discussed earlier that several types of bacteria are very harmful for humans and they can cause different types of diseases. So basically they can cause several different types of infections in humans that are very common and they can vary in their effects. So some harmful bacteria can innovate in our body and cause illness and it is called as bacterial infections. So basically what they can do, these bacteria enter in our body and proliferate and affect some harmful strain of bacteria on or inside the body. And these bacteria affect any of the area of our body and affect a normal functioning of our body. So these bacterial infections are caused by transmission of bacteria from several different types like from air, from food, from contaminated water and by many other means. Now let's understand about the mechanism of working of bacteria. So certain pathogenic bacteria which are harmful for us enter in our body. And once they enter in our body, they may multiply using our body's functioning and they cause infections in our body parts like in our respiratory tract, in our other skins and other body parts, and they cause infections which disturb our proper body functioning. So this functioning is called as bacterial infections which can vary in their effects. Now let's understand the symptoms of bacterial infections in cellular organisms. So basically all the age groups can be affected by the symptoms of bacterial infections. Either they can be children or adult of any age. They can develop a bacterial infection in their body. So basically the symptoms include fever, chills and sweats and sometimes fatigue as general signs and symptoms for bacterial infections. But sometimes there are also some localized symptoms in the affected part. Like the affected part can swell up or swelling can be in the affected part. Pain and redness and organ dysfunctions are also signs or symptoms of bacterial infection in the particular organ. So now let's discuss about the types of bacterial infections. So they are usually caused by different types of bacterial strains like gram-positive bacteria or by gram-negative bacteria. So there are several types of bacterial infections like skin infections, bacterial infections which are foodborne, sexually transmitted bacterial infections, urinary tract infections and respiratory tract infections. So the common bacterial skin infections include cellulitis, folliculitis, impetigo and many other diseases which cause painful red infections or sometimes oozing sores or other types of sores or infections in the hair follicles like symptoms or causes in the skins. The another type of bacterial infections include foodborne infections which are caused by contaminated food. So these bacteria are developed in the contaminated food sources and they are transmitted by the contaminated food sources. The another type of bacterial infection include sexually transmitted bacterial infections and they can cause some diseases like gonorrhea, syphilis and many other diseases. So these infections can be transmitted through sexual functions. So basically they are caused by harmful bacteria and they are not associated with any symptom, but they can still cause serious damage to the reproductive system like vagina and other urinary tract can be infected by these bacteria. The another type of bacterial infection include urinary tract infections which are also transmitted by several types of bacteria which can infect urinary tract. And the most common type of bacterial infection include respiratory tract infections. These bacteria can infect our respiratory tract. The example is Salmonella typhi and many other bacteria which can infect our respiratory tract as well as lungs. Now let's understand about the causes of the bacterial infections. So basically most of the infections are caused by transmission of pathogenic bacteria with the help of several different types of methods like air, contaminated food, drinking contaminated water, and by the contact with any patient. So they are caused by several bacteria like Salmonella typhi, Escherichia coli, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Vibrio vulnificus, and many other bacteria which cause different types of diseases like Salmonella typhi cause typhoid, E. coli cause several types of gastrointestinal problems. Mycobacterium tuberculosis cause TB or tuberculosis in patients. So these bacteria are the transmission factors for different types of diseases. Now the question arises that how these bacterial infections can be diagnosed in our body. So basically there are several different methods for the diagnosis of bacterial infections, like they can be diagnosed by the evolution of swab from throat, skin or pus. So basically the part or the infected area is swabbed like skin or pus in the case of sores, and with the help of these swabbed areas the diagnosis can be done. Due to the urinary tract infections, by the help of urine sample it can be diagnosed, and for respiratory tract infections and for blood infections with the help of blood test or with the help of CBC or complete blood count it can be diagnosed that if it is a bacterial infection or not, because in the case of bacterial infections in the CBC the white blood corpuscles are increased in our body. So now let's understand about the treatment of different types of bacterial infections. So basically the several types of bacterial infections can cure or resolve quickly without any treatment, but many of these infections need to be treated with several types of antibiotics. So basically the antibiotics are the process or the medicines which are used to repress the bacterial cell growth and proliferation, and that's why they are widely used to cure different types of bacterial infections, and these antibiotics have the ability to cure different types of bacterial infections but not for all. So some common antibiotic classes include penicillins, tetracyclines, cephalosporins and many other antibiotics which are widely used to cure different types of bacterial infections. So beside these treatments, there are several preventions which should be taken to cure and to prevent ourselves with these bacterial infections. So basically we should cover our mouth when coughing and sneezing, and when we are going in contact with any patient which is suffering from bacterial infection, and we should clean and cover all the cuts, burns and sores in the skin so that they cannot be infected by any types of bacteria. And it is very necessary to use a method of contraceptions during the sex to prevent by different sexually transmitted diseases. So it is very important to stay hydrated and avoid contaminated food and water to prevent ourselves for food contaminated diseases, and it's very important to don't share our personal items like soap and towel for anyone to cure ourselves by these bacterial infections.